Did you know that somebody else can help you pay for down payment and closing costs? Well, today we're going to talk about what the gift funds and what a gift of equity guidelines are if you're using a Fannie Mae conventional loan. So let's start with what are gift funds? So gift funds are non-borrower funds that can be given to the buyer or the borrower, and can be used for down payment or closing costs. So non-borrower means that they're not going to be on the loan with you necessarily, and they're helping to contribute money towards your down payment and closing costs. But there's guidelines around that. So, who can give you a gift? Who can give you a gift? Basically, if you're using a Fannie Mae conventional loan, so all of these guidelines are if you're using a Fannie Mae conventional loan. A lot of these guidelines will be the same, whether you're using a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, or USDA. There's a lot of similarities, but there are definitely nuances, and that's why I wanted to do each one of these individually. If you know you're doing a conventional loan, you can look at Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. If you're going with a government loan, then you're looking at FHA. So who can give a gift if you're applying for a Fannie Mae mortgage and you're asking for gift funds? So it has to be, so first of all, if it's a relative can give you gift funds. It's defined as a spouse, a child, or other dependent. They have to be related by blood, marriage, adoption, or legal guardianship. Now, a non-relative can give you a gift if they share a familial relationship, like a domestic partner, a relative of a domestic partner, a former relative, a fiance, a godparent. They need to be closely related. They're not a blood relative necessarily. So you can see there's a little bit of gray area here. But for Fannie Mae, they define it pretty well. Now, who cannot give you a gift if you're trying to apply for a Fannie Mae mortgage is an interested party. The donor of gift funds cannot be or have any affiliation with any interested party to the transaction. So that's usually the seller of the property has an interest in the property. It could be a builder. It could be the developer. It could be a real estate agent. They cannot give a gift of equity. Now, the seller and the real estate agent and your lender can give you concessions. So there are ways for them to contribute money, but it can't be used for down payment. So for a gift funds, they can't have an interest in the transaction, so they cannot financially benefit from the transaction. Now, there's no borrower contribution required. Borrower contribution means how much of this money has to come out of your pocket. So if you're getting gift funds to use as the down payment on a conventional loan. In conventional loans, you can have as little as a 3% down payment, but pretty normal, it's around 5% or more. So if you're borrowing 5%, and you're doing a 1 to 4 unit property that is under 80% loan to value, so you have at least a 20% down. There's no down payment, or there's no contribution required from you. If you're buying a single family home, which isn't a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex, single family home above 80%, there's no borrower contribution. So if you have a 5% down payment requirement on a Fannie Mae loan, you can get a gift from your parents for the full 5%. There's no money required from you out of your pocket in order to qualify for that loan. So you can legitimately get gift funds from an acceptable gift fund source to cover all of your down payment, all of your closing costs. So you can legitimately buy a house with zero money out of pocket, zero of your money out of pocket. Borrower contribution is required if you're buying a 2 to 4 unit property. So if you're buying a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, and it's over 80% loan to value, which means you have less than 10% or less than a 20% down payment, you have to come up with 5% of the down payment from your own funds. You have to have at least 5% of your own money in the transaction. Now, if you're using Home Ready, which is Fannie Mae's affordable housing program, on a 2 to 4 unit property with less than 20% down payment, you only have to have 3% of your own funds in the transaction. Now, a gift can be used as the contribution. So if you have a minimum contribution, if you have a minimum, or if you need a borrower contribution, the gift can be used as your minimum contribution if it's from an eligible donor, and if both of the individuals are going to live in the home as their primary home. So an example of this is your spouse or your domestic partner or your fiance maybe isn't going to be on the loan, but they're going to live in the home because maybe their credit score isn't good and their credit score is not great, or maybe their income, they don't have enough income to make it beneficial to have them on the loan application, but they have a bunch of money in savings. They can gift that money to you as part of your minimum contribution. When are gift funds allowed? So you can use gift funds on your primary residence if you're going to live in the home, on a second home. So second home has a specific definition with Fannie Mae. So if it's a second home, it has to be a certain distance away. It has to be in a place where you would vacation. Like if your primary home is in Michigan and your second home is in Florida. That's a good example. Gift funds cannot be used for investment properties. You have to live in the home either as your primary or your secondary residence. Gift funds cannot be used for investment homes. The documentation that you need. So the documentation, so first thing you need is a gift letter, and all gift letters are the same, regardless of whether you're using Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, or USDA. All gift letters need the same information on it. They need the donor who's giving you the gift. They need their name, their address, and their telephone number. They need to state their relationship to you in the letter. They need to say what the dollar amount of the gift is, and they need to have a statement in there that says that there are no expectations of repayment. Now, your loan officer should have a gift letter template that they can give you, and you can just kind of fill in the blanks. But all gift letters are going to require these same things. The other thing you're going to need is you're going to need to document that the gifted donor had the funds available to give you. So the availability of those gifts can be documented by either a copy of the check. So if they wrote you a check and you deposited it into your bank account, that requires a lot of paperwork. You're going to have to get a copy of the check from them. You're going to have to get the deposit slip from them, or the withdrawal from them and the deposit into your bank account. Or if they just wrote a check to the closing agent, to the closing attorney, or the escrow company, you need a copy of the check. Now, if they write the check or they send the check directly to the closing agent, that gets a little bit easier because the settlement agent can show a receipt that says that they received that check. And so that's a good sense. Or that's a good way to do it. By far, the easiest way to do it is to just do an electronic transfer, do an electronic funds transfer to the settlement agent. So have your donor. The reason why you want to do it electronically is because the electronic paper trail is way easier and it's less invasive to document than if you're writing checks. If you're writing checks, You have to have copies of the checks. You have to show copies of the deposit. The donor has to show that they had the money in their account to give you in the first place. So they need copies of their bank statements sometimes, and it can get very cumbersome. Anytime we're getting gift funds from, especially a relative, somebody, a family member, or somebody that is willing to help us with our house, we want to make it as easy as possible on them. We don't want them to have to jump through a bunch of hoops and show a bunch of documentation. And a lot of folks just don't want to show their paperwork. So the electronic funds transfer directly to the escrow company or to the closing attorney is the absolute best way. 100% of the times, if you're using gift funds on the purchase of your home, bring that up to your loan officer right away. Let them know where you're getting the gift funds from, how you're getting those gift funds, and make sure that you're documenting it properly, and make sure, most importantly, that you're doing it as simply as possible for the person. You're making it as easy as possible for the person that's giving you the gift. We just don't want to burden them. They're already helping us out so much. Now, there is a workaround for gift funds. So if the person you're getting the money from, let's say they borrowed the money off of a credit card, right? That's not an acceptable source of gift funds. So if somebody borrowed money off their credit card, deposited the money into their account, and then sent you the gift funds, chances are the underwriter, in the process of documenting where that money came from, is they're going to determine that the person who donated the money to you or who gifted the money to you borrowed that money, and they're not going to allow it. So if there's any questions about where the money is coming from, for instance, cash on hand, you cannot use cash on hand. If you just have cash laying around under the mattress or in a cookie jar or something like that, you can't use that. But you can work around the gift funds is if the person giving you the gift, regardless of where it came from, puts it into your deposits into your bank account, and it's on your bank account for 2 bank statements. 60 days, 2 bank statements. If that balance is in your account for 2 bank statements. Now, if the deposit shows up on one of those bank statements, that's not good. But if it's the balance is there for 2 bank statements, that's considered sourced and seasoned. It's considered your funds, and it's not a gift. So there's no documentation. There's nothing that you have to prove. So that's a really good workaround if the source of your gift, well, couple of reasons. Maybe the person giving you the gift doesn't want to give you any documentation. They don't want to take copies of their checks. They don't want to show you their bank statements. They don't want to give that to the loan officer. That's when you would want to think ahead, deposit the money into your account, have the money in your account for 2 full statements, and then you're good. And then it's considered your money. It's considered sourced and seasoned. It's not considered a gift. And then you don't have to worry about these gift guidelines. Real quick, let's talk about what is a gift of equity. So a gift of equity is equity that's gifted to the buyer in the form of a down payment on the purchase of the home. So it's usually a parent or a relative. An example of this is your parents own a rental property and they're going to sell it to you. So if your parents have equity in the home, so they have a loan on it for about $200,000, but the house is worth $400,000, maybe they're going to sell it to you for $300 and give you $50,000 worth of equity. How do you do all that? That's what's called a gift of equity, is when the seller of the property is gifting you the equity to be used as down payment. What is an eligible gift of equity donor? The donor of a gift of equity is not considered an interested party to the transaction if they meet the eligible donor requirements. So normally, remember, you couldn't get a gift from an interested party. So if they were going to benefit from the sale, you can't use gift funds. That's not true if it's a gift of equity. If it's a gift of equity, if it's a parent or somebody, they meet the eligible donor guidelines, which means they're a relative, or they're a relative of a relative. So basically, if they're an acceptable donor, then there's no interested party conflict there, and it's perfectly okay. Gift of equity guidelines. It can only be for a primary or second home purchase. It's not considered an interested party contribution if it is an acceptable donor source. So if it's a relative or a non-relative that meets those guidelines. There is a minimum borrower contribution if it's a 2 to 4 unit property. Or if it's a second home with over 80% loan to value, then you have to put in 5% of your own funds in it, which is fine. I mean, maybe maybe that scenario, it's worth $400,000 and they owe $200,000, so they're giving you $200,000. So you're buying it for $400,000, but you only have a $200,000 loan on it. You have to have 5% of the purchase price of your 5% of your own money in that transaction. The gift of equity letter is very similar to the same as the gift letter. You have to have the donor's name, address, telephone number, their relationship, the amount of the gift of equity, a statement that there's no expectations of repayment, and then some sort of statement showing the gift. So either it's the escrow paperwork that shows that once the loan is paid off, the seller has this much equity and they've agreed to pay this percentage of the equity to give it to you, the buyer, to help with your down payment requirements of the home. So, folks, that's the gift funds and gift of equity guidelines if you're using a Fannie Mae conventional loan. Again, it's a little bit different. I'm doing this entire series for each agency. So if you're using a Freddie Mac conventional loan, look for that video. If you're using an FHA, VA, or USDA video, I'm doing separate videos for each one of those. So you can look at the guidelines for each one, determine if you qualify for that type of loan and whether those guidelines are going to make more sense for you. So I hope that's helpful. If you can get gift funds to help you buy your home or get a gift of equity, that shortens your curve to being a home buyer quicker than almost anything else. Anytime you can use other people's money, that's a good day. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you're using Freddie Mac conventional, FHA, VA, or USDA, and there are gift funds or a gift of equity involved, look for that video. I'm doing a separate video for each one of the agencies so that there aren't any surprises. And more importantly, you don't run into a loan officer that doesn't know the difference, so that you're at least empowered and you know what the right guidelines are. And if your loan officer doesn't know, but you know, it's time for you to go and look someplace else. And that's what findmywayhome.com can do for you. If you have any questions about this, feel free to leave a question in the comments below. There are links there to Find My Way Home, which is a network of mortgage professionals that are there to answer your questions about qualifying for a mortgage. Everybody on the Find My Way Home network, you can search by state, or when you go to any page, it'll show you the loan officers that are located near you. They're just there to answer your questions. If you're a big YouTube fan, if you're one of our subscribers, every Wednesday we'll do live question and answers, mostly about the videos that we're publishing here throughout the week. So there's more links in the details. Anywhere where you find this content, you can ask a question, and we are here to help answer your questions. So I hope this was helpful. And if you do have gift funds, congratulations, because that's one of the best ways to get into a home, and there's no better time to do it than now. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.